And a very pleasant Tuesday evening to everyone. Welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Tom Heck, and tonight we have Chris Dickson. Our sports theme on Tuesday night is always dealing with athletics or the community, and Chris has done a little bit of both. He also was active not only at the college where he is now, but with the Scorpions, one of the club soccer teams in town. And Chris, let's just talk about your soccer background, where you went to school, and a little bit about what you've done with the soccer ball.
Oh, okay. First of all, thanks for having me tonight, Tom. I really appreciate it. I grew up playing soccer. Started when I was about 5 years old. Started playing competitively about age 12 for Stockton United, and played in high school, varsity, and we even went to the SJAA finals a couple times, which was nice. Ended up playing college at American River College up in Northern California, Sacramento area. I guess that's more like Central California. Mm-hmm. And then played at Sonoma State, Division II, for Marcus Zemer for a couple of years, and that was the pinnacle of my playing. Been coaching on and off for, well, mostly on for about close to 25 years now. Started coaching when I was about 18. Picked up a rec team, and then from there started getting licensed and coached competitively down in Southern California. I've coached, since then. After having joined the service, I've bounced around quite a bit, but everywhere I go, I've tried to get involved in the local soccer community, whether it's playing, coaching, or both. Usually both. I helped coach the women's national team in Guam. I've coached several high school teams in Sacramento, and club teams, San Juan United, let's see, what was it down in Southern California, the Murrieta Thunder, and here locally with the Scorpions for a few years, and trying to get that program, that whole scene jump started, as it's kind of dissipated over the last couple of years. The Navy brought me here to Ridgecrest, and I started coaching up at Saracoso last year, mm-hmm. and we developed an entirely new program, which was a first. And I based a lot of what we did there, or designing the program, on my experience at the Air Force Academy, where I also coached with the men's team there. The fitness programs, the nutrition, all that stuff, and also the formations that we use. So a lot of stuff that I'm familiar and I guess you could say comfortable with. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to transfer into our new program here, and but I try to stay active playing. Played in the five-a-side. I officiate locally, at least have for the last couple of years. Referee the high school games, and up until now, I've usually been part of some sort of an adult league, which is kind of hard to come by in Ridgecrest. Hopefully, we'll get something like it jump started in the near future. But otherwise, always trying to stay active in the soccer community and build up, boost our numbers and get more kids interested, families overall interested. Because if the parents are interested, then the rest doesn't really matter, right?
Mm. Hey, let's talk about, I know you're a professional military, Navy, so to say, search and rescue, the guy that flies those helicopters around. Tell us some of the places that you've been stationed, and what is it like to have to sometimes live out of a suitcase? And then I'm going to ask you about going to where your next and last mission is, or one of your last ones before you retire, but you get to go to Bahrain. Which I believe is a larger island, or maybe not so large, but an area near a lot of massive water. But tell us where you've been, first of all, and what's it been like to have to travel like that?
Well, I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps, enlisted. During that stint, I traveled pretty extensively. Spent a year in Diego Garcia, which is a small island on the Mauritian chain Islands. It's a British Indian Ocean territory. Spent about 8 months in Somalia, and got to spend a couple weeks in Kenya, which was kind of cool. Worked with the Border Patrol in Texas, actually, helping them out with planning sensors and developing sensor tracking systems for border monitoring border crossings, and got my degree in kinesiology actually, and got back into the Navy. Got my pilot wings and started flying helicopters. Been doing that ever since. Started off in San Diego. From there went to Guam, where I mentioned I coached with the women's national team there. And from there, came back to San Diego. Got to do we have to do what's called a disassociated sea tour. It's not all about flying. You got to learn how to how to be a naval officer. So I did a stint on an LPD, which is a landing platform dock. It's not the largest ship in the Navy, but pretty darn close. And I was the air boss there. Got to control the tower and the flight deck, where we could have up to 6 aircraft at one time. That was pretty interesting. And did a couple of years there. From there, I went to the Naval War College in Rhode Island, and spent a year there, getting my master's.
The Naval War College.
The Naval War College, yeah.
Boy.
Yeah, they send mid-grade officers to the Naval War College to expand our minds, which it did. It was a absolutely wonderful experience for myself and for my family.
So you do a lot of things like the Coast Guard, possibly. In other words, things that we've all seen on TV with how they drop, the rescue divers down and that kind of thing. Or are you more ground-oriented?
No. Navy helicopter pilots, we all start as blue water pilots.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, we have to learn to drop rescue swimmers, and yeah, that's one of the first things I learned to do is with blue water training. Of course, a little bit different here. Coming from Rhode Island, we came back here to Ridgecrest, and I learned a whole new world of flying. The mountain and desert type, doing search and rescue here. Which, like I said, it's night and day between blue water flying, where there's no terrain, and out here where there's a lot. Don't do the SAR jumps anymore, obviously, but now we're dropping our crewmen out of our aircraft in different ways. Whether it's fast roping or with a hoist. So.
And hold that thought. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about some search and rescue, more soccer coming up. Don't go away. This is Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Tom Heck. And this is Coach Chris Dickson from the women's soccer team at Saracoso. Back after this. And welcome back to Ridgecrest Talk. We're glad you tuned in tonight on KZGN. Chris Dickson with us. In case you just joined us, I'm Tom Heck, and our sports theme is always here on Tuesday night. Chris is a college coach at Saracoso. He started the women's program there, trying to build it up from the ground, basically. He started the program 2 years ago, and next year will be year number 3 for him. Now you've got and this is kind of the recruiting time of the season for you, and you're going to be here until January. I know your assistant coach is very involved also to try to help you out. But when January comes, tell us where you get to go for 6 months. Then you'll be back again in the fall. But what's going to happen on that next mission and last mission for you?
Well, I get to go to Bahrain. Actually, it's going to be closer to a year. I'll probably be back more like December, January time frame. And I'm going to be working as the air operations officer over there for a C-12 squadron. Bahrain's just a little island off the coast of Saudi Arabia, actually, not too incredibly large, and be working with the air operations there. So
are they actually part of Saudi Arabia?
No, they're a sovereign nation.
Okay.
Aside from Saudi Arabia, I think at one point in time they were connected. Pretty tight, but I think they've been a sovereign nation for going on 30 years now.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we've got a pretty good accord with the host nation, so should be an interesting stint. Getting a huge cultural cultural experience there, I think.
So you kind of got the best of both worlds. A little bit of a desert there to your maybe east, and you got the water just to your west there. So you have a little bit of everything then, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, we're surrounded by water, so I guess there's scuba diving out there and all sorts of good stuff. But yeah, the desert's not too far away, so it's not going to be much of a change of scenery, I'd imagine.
Wow. I wonder how many people live there. Do you have any idea how big that place is?
I honestly don't. Yeah. But I can find out for you.
That would be just interesting.
Yeah.
Not too many of us ever get to go to Bahrain or travel like I know you have. Let's talk about soccer as far as in some of the other countries right now. Where is soccer worldwide? If you had to rate it, number-wise, is it one of the top 3 most popular spectator sports in the world, or is it much more taken serious as you go over to the European countries? I mean, where is it huge right now, do you think?
Oh, well, it's huge everywhere. I mean, it's probably the number 1 sport, and not probably, it is the number 1 sport in the world, and that's as far as viewers, fans, and players, people participating in the sport. It is the number 1 sport in the world. The only place it's not is the United States. So and obviously there are other sports that we prioritize a little bit higher. And don't get me wrong, I love my football and my basketball and baseball, but I have to say the pinnacle is soccer. So where's it big? South America, huge. Europe, uber huge. There several professional leagues all throughout Europe and South America. Not to mention Japan, China. A lot of Asian countries have their own professional leagues. Russian professional leagues. There's a great many, and they are we have the MLS here in the United States, which has come a long way in its 20 plus years. Actually, maybe a little less than 20 years, but it's not quite at the level of the European leagues, but it's going to get there someday, I think. Mm-hmm. So.
Now, as far as the pay goes, I mean, that's not a hobby for those. That's a professional team where they're paid a lot of money in most of those leagues, correct?
Millions of dollars in some cases. Very very comparable to what our NFL players or NBA, MLB players will be paid on an annual basis.
Now, something that comes up with soccer that unfortunately raises its ugly head is the violence connected with it, and maybe not so much from the players themselves on the field, but it's the fans that seem to get on the 10 o'clock news, quite often. Something happened on the field after the game, during the game, a call by a referee, and it seems like in some places it's a bit out of control. How has that been addressed, and is that as big an issue as it appears to be sometimes?
Well, again, Europe, South America, pretty much anywhere but the United States, it's a big issue. Soccer hooligans, violence in the fans, in the stands, in the stadiums, is a pretty big deal, and they have to have they have to bring in a lot of security to handle issues like that. We don't have those problems really in the United States. I think that's because it's just probably due to a cultural norm that we've established here in the United States, and as opposed to cultural norms that have been established overseas. It can get out of hand, and it's unfortunate, that it does that, because it sours the game, it sours the experience. So
let's talk about the Olympics. I know soccer. I actually caught some games or the World Cup, I should say, and the World Cup, then the Olympics, and it seems like every 2 years there's either the Olympics or the World Cup that's happening back there. But the players that play for most countries, are they usually professional players, or are they still amateur, or is it a combination? Because years ago, it used to be where if you were in the Olympics, it had to be amateur status. You couldn't have been a paid professional, but that has all gone out the window, changed, and no greater example than our basketball team that we have from the United States there. But what kind of the players play in the World Cup, number one, and then also in the Olympics?
World Cup, absolute professionals. These are the best of the professional leagues, and obviously invited to play for their national teams. So, and in each nation throughout the world typically has a professional league that it hosts, and if it doesn't, a neighboring nation does, and that's where they grow their players. Case in point, Brazil, where they had the last World Cup. Soccer is a religion there, quite literally, and they take it very seriously. They have a great many clubs, professional clubs, and they draw from those clubs to take the best from those clubs and mold their national team. And we do the same thing here in America, but we have a mix. It's kind of interesting. Some of our players play overseas in the European and South American leagues, and others play here at MLS. So it's a mix there.
All right, when we come back for our third segment, we'll talk more with Chris about soccer and a little bit more about Saracoso soccer after these words. This is KZGN's Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Tom Heck and Chris Dickson. And welcome back, and you've joined KZGN's Ridgecrest Talk. Tuesday night, our sports theme. Tonight, Chris Dickson, the head women's soccer coach at Saracoso College. And Chris, we've been talking a little bit about soccer in the world, and the World Cup and the professional leagues, and we've talked a little bit about college soccer. And let's take a few minutes and talk about Saracoso. And as a community college women's coach, talk about some of the more difficulties trying to recruit players into a smaller area. I know you really have to kind of dig hard sometimes, look under rocks, do some things to try to find and get kids to come here. But what's it like to have to go out and recruit, and when does it ever stop?
Well, no, I mean it doesn't ever stop, but it's a lot of fun. I mean it's a very interesting. I think it's probably one of the most interesting aspects of coaching is finding the players. Going to surrounding schools and games and watching them play, talking to them afterwards, talking to their coaches. But it is tough because we're in such a remote area, and obviously I can't get all my players from boroughs. I got to get them from elsewhere. So I'm going to places like Kern Valley, Mojave, Cal City, Rosamond, Desert, Bishop, and other schools in the surrounding area. But not everybody wants to come out here, and I got to convince them that this is the right thing for them to do. This is it's a great place to be. It's a great environment to concentrate on their studies. We've got a great college, and we've got a developing program that I think is in the next few years going to be very, very competitive in our conference. So I put all those factors together with the opportunity that they may not have had elsewhere to play, and that's the draw.
I know that the conference, the Foothill Conference, fairly competitive for women. I think San Bernardino Valley won the league, although I noticed in first round they were defeated by Santa Barbara, I believe 2-0, if I saw that correctly. Do you know what happened maybe with Rio Hondo, the other team that made the playoffs at all?
Yeah, Rio Hondo. I don't think they went. I don't think they advanced in the playoffs. They ended up ranked 20th in the state, which wasn't too bad. And actually, Jennifer Tanaka, their coach, was selected as our Foothill Conference Coach of the Year. She did a real great, just a fantastic job with the players she had this year, and came up quite a bit from last year. Even challenged the likes of San Bernardino and Chaffee, which kind of dropped a little bit this year. They weren't as tough of an opponent as they were in the past. So, but I think San Bernardino is still moving along in the playoffs. But I think the Rio Hondo's out. So.
All right. What about your playing career, what do you remember the most? What was the most fun, and where did you play on the field?
I was a goalkeeper, so the best position in the world. Now there's not one best position. They're all equally important for to find a way to win. But I actually didn't always play goalkeeper. I started off playing forward or striker when I was younger. Moved into defense. I used to play right back and sometimes center back. And then that was actually my first year in high school. I was the right back. I didn't start playing goalkeeper until my sophomore year, and our coach needed a goalkeeper. I knew a little bit about the position, but I needed some training. So I went and got some. I went and found a coach, and he gave me a crash course, pretty much. And then I learned a lot of it on my own. I was described by a lot of my coaches as having some of the most unrefined technique they'd ever seen, but I did a great job of keeping the ball in the net, so that's why I was their guy. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way it happened with me. Nowadays, we have specialized coaches for goalkeeping, and technical work is instrumental at a very early age to get these kids to be able to.
What do you think is the toughest position to learn how to play for young players?
Oh, toughest position to learn how to. I would have to say goalkeeper. It's not as intuitive as the other field positions. Obviously kicking a ball is a little bit different than throwing a ball, or catching a ball. But as a goalkeeper, it's not just about catching the ball. It's about catching it and keeping from hurting yourself. So there's got to be proper technique, and timing is a real big factor. So there's a certain amount of athleticism involved, and there's a different mindset. Goalkeepers tend to be a little bit different than field players. There's a lot on their shoulders. They tend to harbor a lot of that, and put a lot of the that stress on themselves. And they're the last man on defense, first man on offense, or woman, depending on how you're looking at it.
In our last few minutes here, we mentioned you're going to Beran. Are you going to be able to coach there at all, or do anything with the soccer ball when you're there?
I don't know. I'm bringing a soccer ball, that's for sure. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do anything. I'd like to be able at least to knock it around with some friends while I'm over there, if that's possible. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get involved with the community. I'll certainly look into that when I get over there. But Sean Litton, my assistant, he's going to be taking the program in my absence, and he and I are going to be in close contact. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time in touch with him and helping him.
Well, with today's technology, you can probably just watch everything on your phone or your wristwatch. The way things are going nowadays. Wow,
video conference the games. Yeah.
Wow. So hopefully you'll get to do something where you'll stay in the game some. Hopefully, do they have a national team in Beran? Do you have any idea? Or?
You know what? I haven't even.
Well, those are things you can look into, and
I can look into,
you can stay into it. Hopefully.
Yeah.
But
I'd imagine they do. But
and real quick here in our last 30 seconds, maybe if there's somebody out there watching that knows of some female that wants to play soccer, at the community college level, where can they get a hold of you at?
You can call me on my cell phone, 858-603-8830, or my Saracosa email, which is Christopher with a K, Kristopher, .Dickson, Dickson, at saracosa.edu.
And that's a way to get a hold of Chris Dickson, the women's soccer coach at Saracosa College. Chris, appreciate you tonight very much stopping by and sharing, and we wish you the best when it comes to Bahrain, and bring us back some kind of souvenir from there, would you?
Absolutely. My pleasure, Tom. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Chris Dickson, the women's soccer coach at Saracosa. We'll be back next week. We'll have another show for you. Thanks for watching. This is Ridgecrest Talk right here on KZGN.